Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
It's that time again to go racing for the BISC GT3 Championship. It is the penultimate round here at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And I'm not going to lie to you, I cannot wait to see what the drivers pull out here for today as the season slowly starts to come towards an end. My name is Tristan Herbst. Joining me in the commentary box is Matthew Duffin. And in the production booth is Sam Fitzpatrick. You've been seeing him in the commentary booth and the production booth for a while. For the past 2 weeks, but Matthew Duffin is back, the legend himself, and we've got some great last two rounds for you that we'll be showcasing. But today we're here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. You can see the track map on the right side of your screen, in a relatively balanced track in terms of straights and corners, so very interesting to see what these cars are going to do. But Matthew, what's the thoughts on how today's going to go?
Yeah, I love this circuit. I think motorsport provides always entertaining and interesting racing. It's a nice flow to this circuit. You've got the one little tricky section called Moss, the double right-hander, the heaviest braking zone on the circuit, and I think that this could provide a good bit of drama here today. Fast-flowing circuit that I think is absolutely fantastic to go racing at. I've done many a race here, normally in the Porsche Cup cars, so let's see what the GT3s can provide us. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and like you mentioned, very flowy track, and you could see it represented by the track map, and we'll see it as well as the cars take to the track on board with Scott Boerman in the Aston Martin Vantage. Just to go through our schedule for the day again, just to remember, this isn't your normal style, standard qualifying feature race. We've actually got a little bit more action like we usually do at the BISC GT3 Championship. We've got our open practice currently running. Our open practice has just finished. Apologies. We're actually on our qualifying already. So just about 2 minutes in, we'll then head over to a 10-minute sprint race, which is going to prove quite tricky for the drivers. They need to get themselves into a bit of a mindset that they have only 10 minutes to get those results in. And then we'll go through a short break and then a 35-minute feature race down to the line. And with it being the penultimate round, Matt, it's going to be quite an important one for these drivers to get those points in.
Yeah, it is indeed, and this is where the drivers now are going to start to, I think, feel the pressure a little bit more, especially going into that short sprint race. They're going to want to make up them places if they've had a poor qualifying, and for sure that they're going to want to make sure that they are trying to capitalise and maximise every opportunity at points they can get.
Absolutely so. But before we head into the events of the day, as we can see the drivers are still on their outlaps, it's an important thing to go through some of the sponsors that have made this championship possible and taken us through quite a couple of rounds already, all the way up to our penultimate round. The first obviously being our major sponsors of Bowden's own premium car care products. You'll see them rotating in the top right hand side of your screen, and then as well as Benji's YouTube channel, where all of you are currently watching from the virtual grandstand. We then have some of our other amazing sponsors, RaceForge, all of your racing stats and analysts, plus your private league management needs. And I believe that the league actually runs on RaceForge. So very nice of them to come in and sponsor the league. Hyperspec is here with the newest sim gloves on the market that are created by sim racers for sim racers. So if you've been looking at some new gloves and you haven't had a bit of a look at what you want to get, head over to Hyperspec, have a look at those gloves. We've then also got Jack Ashton Sim Coaching, with, as the name suggests, is some sim coaching for all of those who need a little bit of practice and refine on a couple of the edges on these tracks. Well, head over to them and they'll ensure that you can get those lap times in. We've got Hair Forum as well as RBMX Designs for all your sim racing livery custom designs. And I believe we've got a couple of drivers out here today with liveries provided by RBMX. So great to see loads and loads of sponsorships. And obviously, as we head towards the end of our season over here, it's good to also mention the nice cash prizes that will be awarded to some of our drivers. First place will be taking home 300 Australian dollars. And so that is what the grind is for, trying to get down to the line and have the most amount of points on the board at the end of the season. Second will take 200 Australian dollars, and third will take 100 Australian dollars. We've also got prizes from 4th down to 7th, but those will also be discussed further on after our final round. But really excited to see what the drivers can do. Qualifying is about 1/3 of the way in, and we've already got a couple of times on the board.
Yeah, already got a couple of times on the board. And it's Stephen Devjak, who is currently your pole sitter by 9/10 of a second at the moment. He's looking quite quick out there. Rainman in the Mercedes-Benz, second place from Scott Borman, Luke Broadbent, Ben Mitchell, Ian Noxie, Scott Evans, Nick Green, and Michael Angeli, the only 9 cars to set a lap time. 4 drivers yet to set one. Andrew Cash and Anthony Edwards yet to be out on the circuit, but Dante Oliva and Ivan Vantigiato is still yet to set a lap time, as Dante has actually returned to the pit lane there, so he's bailed on that lap, must have made a mistake somewhere. His Vantigiato there, look, goes to the top of the timing tower by 3/10 of a second, and Scott Borman now makes an improvement up into P2, so time's just starting to improve slightly.
Yeah, definitely so. And remember, the drivers do only have 3 laps out of that 12 minutes, as we see one of the bumpers getting ripped off of that Mercedes. Very unfortunate there for Vantigiato. Looks like he made contact with a lever who just came out of the pit lane. So unfortunately, he's going to have to return and re-attempt it. But I think something very notably that we need to mention is that our championship leader actually isn't here today, and we'll pull up those championship standings for all of you to see. But Mr. Ben Snell, who currently leads the championship, as you can see, 241 points, a good, I would say 97 points ahead of Dante Oliva, is not here today for any of the racing. Hopefully, with that point advantage, he can stay ahead, but it's going to be a close one. Dante Oliva, who we just saw have a bit of a tap there with one of the Mercedes of Vantigiato, in second. Peter Ferrara, the underdog, coming in from 3rd position, 131 points. And there we have Ivan Vantigiato just below him. So he's going to be fighting to get into that championship standings podium after the penultimate round, because after the next round, it's officially over. You need to get those points in and ensure you get that final prize pool. Remember, only 1st to 7th will get a cash prize. So if you're an 8th like Nick Green, who's currently tied for 7th, you're going to need to push hard today to make your way into that prize pool slot. But for the rest of the drivers, about 5 or so minutes left of qualifying, and Stephen Devjak actually leads us now with a 114.4.
Ben Snell's actually in the YouTube chat. He says, such a bummer, I can't race tonight. Hopefully my back is recovered enough for next week. So back problems for Ben Snell. Well, Ben, hopefully you get better, my friend, and hopefully we do get to see you back out there next week at Phillip Island. But yeah, good opportunity tonight with no Ben Snell for somebody to snatch a race win and get, maybe grab themselves a podium. And like you said there, for Nick Green, who needs to get himself into that top 7, an opportunity for him tonight to definitely capitalise. And I think this is the point we're at in the season, isn't it now, where you're going to start to see drivers, I think, especially in that shorter sprint race, just make a few more moves, or look to attempt to make a few more moves, just because of that prize pool that they know they're playing for as well. As we're coming towards the Moss section of the circuit on board with Dante Oliva, then the double right-hander tightens up through the second part of that corner, and then you get onto this back straight, a real chance to slipstream the car in front, try and make an overtaking opportunity coming into the final sector. But it's them double right-handers that I think is going to catch drivers out tonight, Tristan.
Definitely so, especially as we get towards the end of our feature race. The tyres are going to start to feel slightly worn. Obviously, GT3 cars are built to go for about an hour and 20-minute stints, but after about 30 minutes or so, especially with the sharp degradation of corners that we're seeing here, we might see things start to escalate towards the inside of our race. But something to mention as well is that the top 15 drivers in both the sprint and the feature race will be awarded points. So fortunately for all the drivers here today, they all will classify for points even if they DNF, because we only have 13 runners in today's race. Unfortunately, we are used to seeing a couple more, but I believe with the choice of car and track, obviously, I'm not too sure. Matthew would probably know if Canadian Motorsports Park is a paid track or not, but sometimes we do have drivers who just don't have enough. Just heard now it is a paid track, so sometimes drivers just don't have the track bought in time for the race, and which is why we see a couple of them dropping off towards these kind of rounds. But with about 3 or so minutes left of qualifying, and Devjak is looking quite strong over there, Matthew. I mean, 3.5 tenths up in Vantagiato. Let's hope he can maybe keep it.
I'm surprised we haven't seen Dante Oliva put a better lap time in, to be fair. He's always kind of been the front runner, hasn't he, challenging Snell in qualifying. Yet down in 7th place, he's the only one with laps left. Remember, they only get so many laps in this qualifying session to complete. Well, with Dante returning to the pits on his first couple of out laps, let's say, he's got a few laps in hand to try and take advantage, and the bonus for that means clear circuit, because there's going to be no traffic in front of him to ruin his lap time. He's just come round to start another lap, only improves to 6th place. Now, he's the sole BMW out there. Is this a track that doesn't suit the BMW, or is this a track that maybe doesn't suit him? Because Dante's normally a bit closer to the front, 1.1 off the pole at the moment from Stephen Devjak, who set a fantastic 14.4. Vantagiato not far behind him, and Scott Borman as well, pretty close in company, half a second separating them three. But yeah, surprised at Dante down at 6th at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're talking about track familiarity and stuff. The BMW, obviously, it does have its own unique driving style, but with it being a front-engine drive car, it will have similar characteristics to your Aston Martin Vantage, as well as the Merc V8. And a couple of the drivers, as you can see, all the way from 1st to 5th position, all front-engine cars, and funny enough, 7th to 11th, all your mid-engine vehicles. So it seems like the front engines have a little bit of a advantage around this track. But can Oliva, who, like we have spoken about, had a very dominant start to the season, he unfortunately did drop slightly in the past 2 rounds, but this is redemption time. As we mentioned, it is the penultimate round, and coming across just about to finish off his lap time. Will it be an improvement as he comes across the line? Will it be a bit of a jump up? Indeed it is. Up into the podium slots he goes, and just about 5 tenths off of Devjak. That'll put him in a good place to contest for that sprint race. Yeah, and there we go. That was going to come, wasn't it? And he's put it right where he needs to be. This is a great chance for the likes of Vantagiato and Oliva tonight to try and win this race. Snell has been pretty dominant all season, hence the 98-point lead he's got in the championship. This is a real chance for one of these two men, and maybe even Devjak as well, to just put their stamp on this championship, just to say, look, we've been here as well. Ben Snell's been dominant, but we've been, right behind him in certain races. This is their chance to close in and maybe make a statement today with a race win or two. Let's see what happens coming up in the sprint and the feature race. But yeah, Oliva at the moment, I think he's still got 1 lap, or is that the qualifying done? The qualifying is done. He's used all his laps up, so that is qualifying come to an end, and it will be Devjak on pole. Devjak on pole indeed, and I realized what we spoke about earlier as well is that Peter Ferraro also not here tonight. He's the final spot of the podium on that championship standing, and so he's unfortunately put himself in a bit of a threatening position in terms of the drivers behind, because he could potentially lose out on that podium spot. But looking at our starting procedure, Stephen Devjak will take first position from Ivan Vantagiato. Dante Oliva gets that 3rd position in the final qualifying stint. Scott Berman will start 4th with Rainman down in 5th. Ian Noxie will round off the 3rd row in 6th position. Ben Mitchell, the league owner, in 7th, followed by Michael Angeli in 8th position. Just a bit further down from 9th, we've got Scott Evans and Luke Broadbent rounding off the 5th row. Nick Green will take 11th, and Anthony Eduardes will take 12th. Andrew Cash will be the final driver, the Jamaican from 3-8 Motorsport, will be sitting at the backside of the grid. Let's hope he doesn't see any chaos unfold. We do unfortunately see it in the GT3 class. Sometimes that first corner does get a little bit daunting, especially when it's a hard braking zone. Fortunately, here at Canadian Motorsports Park, it's not too much of a heavy brake and more of a long winder right down. And we may be able to see a little bit more of a relaxing start, but anything can happen. So we look towards the start of our 10-minute sprint race, and I think it's going to be quite a good race here. We usually do see the drivers putting quite a lot of pressure to get those points in that short 10-minute stint.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the start of the race is normally quite daunting, but here it's a short run down to a little right-hander that drops downhill. I think we're going to see the problem depending on how close the pack is towards them double right-handers. But look how close they are on the grid already, so very close to each other. It's quite a tight, compact grid here at Motorsport. So let's see what will happen as the safety car takes us away. And we're about to get underway for the first race of the morning here in the UK and of the afternoon in Australia. So let's see what will happen here at Canadian Motorsport Park. Devjak on pole in this race. It's going to be an interesting one, I think, to find out who's going to capitalise here while Ben Snell's away, because it's 98 points from to a lever. Vantagiato, like you say, he can move into third place. Devjak down in 12th place at the moment. His pole position, he could really propel himself up the standings.
Definitely so, especially if he finalizes that by getting a good result in the sprint as well as in the feature. And I can't actually remember too much. We commented on quite a couple of events. I think there is a reverse grid for the feature race from what we see in the 10-minute sprint. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to confirm it just yet. We're not 100% sure. Obviously, we'll see when it comes around. It might just be a standard start from the finishing positions of the sprint, but as we see the drivers now, you'll see those brake lights will begin to illuminate as they start dragging to get those tires and brakes nicely warmed up. You'll see it in GT3 classes. There's not as much swerving as you might see in an open wheeler like a Formula car. It's more comes down to the brake heat, and that then heats up the inner rim of the tire and overall just gets the OMI warmed up. That's the outside, middle, and inside of the tire. But obviously, most of the warming up will come in the action-packed zones going through the corners in these GT3 cars. You can see as everybody starts to line up now, the big Merc of Vantagiato with Devjak on the inside in the Vantage. I believe it's the first time he starts on pole in our sprint race this season, and so he's looking to maybe try and keep himself there just steadily behind the pace car, and hopefully with the threat behind of Oliva and Vantagiato both wanting to contest for a little bit of a bump up on that championship standings, Devjak can stay neatly, not feeling too pressured, and hopefully keep himself neatly up into P1.
Yeah, looking forward to this one. We're about to get underway as they come to the back end of the circuit. Devjak's going to lead them away. The safety car pulls into the pit lane, and we are getting ready to go green here at Canadian Motorsport Park. And it's a good start from Devjak. He's already dropped away from the rest of the field. He made sure he got off the line pretty well there from the rolling start. That is Oliva who's already off the circuit, so he's tumbling down the order. So dramas at turn 1 for Dante Oliva, and the two Ferraris battling it out. That's Nick Green, who needs to get into that top 7 in the championship, squeezing up the inside past one of the other Ferraris there, and he's looking to make his way past the red Ferrari just in front of him as well. But Nick Green already on the move. He's behind Scott Evans, who's wide himself, and that will allow Nick Green to come right flying by. And here we go, he's side by side again. Green is in the thick of the action on the opening lap as they drop downhill through the left-hand bend.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Nick Green capitalizing on this race to try and get up into that top 7, and he's definitely done that. 3 positions up in the first couple of corners, up into 8th position he will go, as well as Ben Mitchell, 2 positions up at the start of this, up into 5th in his Lamborghini Huracan. Also a bit of a solo driver like the BMW, the only 2 cars of their brand out on track. And so we'll have to see what they can do. Oliva thankfully managed to recover himself there. He's back up into 3rd position, just up ahead of Rainman, as he will try and hold on now. He needs to try and catch up to Vantagiato, though. He has lost out slightly, about 4 seconds of a gap between himself and Vantagiato, and he needs to try and catch up to the pack up in front. Devjak, what a great pull, though. 2.2 seconds ahead of Vantagiato already, and he is looking quite strong in the sprint race. There's not a lot of time to capitalize catching up to another driver in such a short race. So this is good for Devjak. Broadbent loses out now to Nick Green, I believe, again, as Scott Evans goes down a little bit. He lost the position there to Nick Green as well as Luke Broadbent, and Jelly's down 3 positions as well, as Nick Green has been fighting up in his green and black Ferrari 296. He's looking onwards to Scott Boerman and Ian Noxie in a couple of corners. Can he possibly gain even more positions and further extend himself into the top 7?
Yeah, what a start from Nick Green, isn't it? You know, he's had we spoke about him in the qualifying session about how he needs to propel himself into that top 7, and is today the day to capitalise on that with a few of the quicker drivers not here. Well, he's had a great start, up 3 places, he's in the thick of the fights, and he's on the back of this train right behind Rainman now, who is holding up that of Mitchell, Noxie, Borman, and Green and Broadbent are almost on the back of this train as well, making it nearly 6 cars involved. Here is Angeli though, in between Evans and Edwards. He's in the thick of a good fight here. Andrew Cash hasn't taken to the start of this race, sadly, so we have only got the 12 runners out here at the moment, but lap 2 coming towards an end. And it's still Devyak who leads by 2.6 seconds, just set the fastest lap, matching the pace of Dante Oliva, but with some 3/10 quicker than that of Vantagiato. So he's looking really quick at the moment. Is Devjak out front. Here's Ben Mitchell though, having a look on the back of Rainman, but he's just got a little wide coming through the right-hander. That's put Noxie and Borman on the back of him, and it's not Noxie who's attacking the Lamborghini, it's the Aston Martin of Borman who gets past the Ford Mustang of Ian Noxie. A good little move there from Borman. Saw that Noxie had just tried to have a look on the Lamborghini and ran a little wide, and the Aston Martin slipped through.
Yeah, very unfortunate there for Ben Mitchell. Thankfully, he hasn't lost out to the drivers behind, but as you mentioned, Berman getting a jump on Noxie there from the slowdown on Ben Mitchell, and Noxie will be trying to get that position back. He does have the fierce competitor of Nick Green, who is absolutely hungry for positions here today. But talking about hunger, here comes Berman, the V8 Vantage, fighting against the V10 Huracan. Who's going to take it? Coming down towards the next pinnacle corner. He is on the outside line into the next right-hander, and Mitchell will hold. There is contact. It's a little bit of door scraping, and looks like he'll just manage to stay within track limits, but he is now yet again under pressure from the 5.6 liter Mustang of Ian Noxie. Gets just ahead of the Vantage, and now back to square one for the likes of Scott Berman. He'll need to try and catch back up, get ahead of Ian Noxie, and recontest Ben Mitchell for that final 5th position spot of the top 5. But I mean, we got to mention this, Matthew. I mean, look at Steven Devyak. He's 3.3 seconds ahead of Vantagiato. This is a driver we don't usually see fighting up in the top 1 spot, and he's absolutely gapping the rest of the field currently.
Absolutely flying, 0.6 of a second quicker than Vantagiato on the last time around. So absolutely flying out there is Devjak. And how difficult was that? Nick Green has got past Borman now, so Nick Green on the charge through the field at the moment, took 4 spots. He's past Nick Green, and now here comes Broadbent having a look up the inside of Borman. The Aston Martin versus the Corvette there. Nick Green's got through, but I tell you what, how close was that between Borman and Mitchell to making contact and nearly ending both of their first races in this one. It was good, hard racing, and that's what you love to see. And now Broadbent under pressure from Evans as we come in towards the final sector. Very difficult to try and overtake through this sector because it does flow left to right to left quite a bit, so it's very difficult to overtake. You've got to have the advantage alongside to come through the final corner. There you go now, ending lap 4, starting lap 5. Is that Borman having a bit of a look on Nick Green there? It looked like it was just further forward. Scott Evans has brought himself into play on this train, and it's no longer behind that of Rayman, it's all behind that of Ben Mitchell now in the Lamborghini. Just needs to pick up some pace. Nick Green needs to get back on the rear of the Ford Mustang because Borman is putting him under increasingly amounts of pressure as they look through the right-hander, and Green covers that one off nicely there. But Nick Green, we said he's going to fight, didn't we, today, to try and work his way into that top 7 of the standings? Well, he's given it his all.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Michael Angeli, who's pretty much his direct competitor here for that top 7, has not had the race he would have hoped for here in the sprint. He's actually had the complete opposite of Nick Green. 4 positions down in 12th. You can see him just in the background there in his black, in his red and yellow Ferrari 296. But Nick Green, lots and lots of pressure here from Borman. Another fight we'll have to slowly start to look towards is the fight between Oliva and Vantagiato. Oliva lapping a lot faster than Vantagiato each lap, about 5 to 6 tenths faster. And now within a bit of an attacking zone, 6 tenths from Vantagiato. And we might see a switch around for that second position, but for the time being, Nick Green has unfortunately lost out to Scott Berman in that previous chicane. Oh, good lunge up onto the inside. Unfortunately, not enough, and he had to slow the car down before he ended up making a 296 Vantage sandwich into the next corner. But Berman will remain ahead in his blue Aston Martin, just ahead of the green 296, hoping for the best. But here's that fight up that we're talking about. It's Ivan Vantagiato from the Slipstream Autosport team in the big Merc. Just behind, though, is the straight 6 BMW, the M4, trying to push on from the likes of Dante Oliva. Coming through the next couple of corners, he is a lot faster in that BMW. He's slowly starting to find his comfort spot, which we saw him struggle with in qualifying. But he is definitely starting to make way for it. 4 tenths away now from Vantagiato. We might be able to see a position being made in the next couple of laps. He's looking aggressive and trying to charge up towards getting a goal. Somebody's off there, and that's I believe that's Scott Evans. Not too sure what happened. We just saw him on the right-hand side of the screen. Here's your replay coming just behind Broadbent. Was this possibly a tap? Nick Green just up in front, trying to hold off against Anthony Eduardes just behind, and it's completely self-inflicted in the Ferrari 296, just losing the rear on the exit of that corner.
And that's so easy to do on the exit of that corner as it tightens up through the second part of that corner. It is so easy to just be a little bit too greedy on the accelerator, put it down a little bit too hard, too fast. Round you go, just as you're trying to get out the traction zone as best as possible. Yeah, what a shame for Evans there. He was looking good today on the back of that train, but here is Dante Oliva then on the rear of Vantagiato's Mercedes-Benz, and you just get the sense from Dante today that every lap that goes by, he's just starting to gel a little bit more with this circuit. You don't feel like he's in the full flow and rhythm of this track, but he's getting there as we go through. He's right in the slipstream now under the rear wing. Look how close he gets to the back of the Mercedes-Benz. Crucial to get that second right-hander right, because you need a great launch down this back straight into the final sector. It's all about the run down here, but Devjak out front, another 6/10 quicker than Vantagiato, who was only a 10th quicker than Oliva last time round, but that's not going to matter to him because he is 6.8 seconds in the lead of this one with a minute and a half left. It may be final lap by the time they get to the line. We'll have to keep our eyes on that one. Here is Nick Green once again coming under pressure from Broadbent in that Corvette. Green's pace has just started to dip a little bit towards the end of this one. He's allowed Borman, Noxie and Mitchell to just get away from him towards the end, and this has brought Broadbent and Edwards onto the rear of the Ferrari driver himself. And yeah, that pace that Nick Green had early on just seems to have died off as we are 9 minutes into this race of 10 minutes sprint race here. I believe this is maybe the final lap of the race. We'll keep our eyes out now. There'll be one more to go, just looking at the timing tower. So one more to come after this. And here goes Broadbent on the attack, looking to the outside, not going to work through there. He's trying to set him up maybe for the double right-hander, get a run out of this corner. Can he get that run to the inside line of the Moss double right-hander? I don't think he has. The Corvette just not able to get alongside the Ferrari of Nick Green there. Mitchell's got past Rainman up into P3. Rainman was pretty well clear of Ben Mitchell as well in this race, so I'm not sure if Rainman's made a mistake. He's already looking to immediately answer back here in the light blue Mercedes-Benz, and powers on through goes Rainman. Bit of an incident there. I wonder if Ben Mitchell's let him through.
Yeah, looks like a little bit of a let through. We'll maybe get a bit of a replay as to what happened in that right-hander, because it did look like a bit of a give through from Ben Mitchell. So you can see it's just behind, just up ahead is the likes of Rainman, and through the next couple of corners, was it? And there it comes. So it was a bit of a punt from Ben Mitchell and forces Rainman wide, and I think just for the sake of sportsmanship has to let him back, because that is a little bit of an unfair overtake. And thankfully for Ben Mitchell, lots and lots of sportsmanship shown there. But we have officially reached the end of our clock. And for Devjak, a good 4.5 seconds ahead of Vantagiato. He's had an absolutely stellar race here for the sprint, and definitely going to position him in a nice position going into that feature race. Let's hope he can continue the same stride, but a bit further behind, Scott Berman has been able to capture back onto the backside of Ian Noxie, but I'm not too sure it's going to be enough. Ian Noxie now pressuring for that final top 5 position on the final lap. This could be it, as he makes a similar mistake that Ben Mitchell made, and it's actually gone around just a bit too much tapping, and Ben Mitchell loses out completely, reverses, and Nick Green almost gets collected as he tries to find a way around. He has lost out to Broadbent after that, and very unfortunate, but thankfully no contact there whatsoever. But here for the finish, Steven Devjak comes across the checkered flag to take the win in our sprint race. Vantagiato, great defense against the lever, and manages to stay ahead up to the final minute. Rainman will be fighting just a bit ahead of Noxie, who had a bit of an incident there with the likes of Ben Mitchell, who's
full send.
11th. There's contact from Luke Broadbent and the likes of Nick Green. A little bit too much push there from Nick Green, and just ever so slightly touches the side of Luke Broadbent. We'll get a bit of a replay of this, and as you can see, I think Nick Green took a little bit too much of an inside line there, trying to get ahead of him on the final corner. Yeah, but bit of an adventuristic dive there from Nick Green. I think the stewards will be reviewing that one. Very unfortunate for the likes of Luke Broadbent, and he loses out on the final corner from that contact with Nick Green. But that officially wraps up the first round, first race of tonight's racing. I keep on thinking it's today. It's a pure daylight for myself and Matthew, but for the Australians down under over here, it's nicely in the evening, and they get to go racing for the second time now on the feature race.
I'd love to try and get a replay of the Ben Mitchell and Ian Noxian. Oh, we can't, sadly. That's a shame. I'd have loved seeing that, because it looked to me, coming into the double right-hander, like Mitchell just kind of maybe chopped the nose off a little late of the Ford Mustang. That's caught the Mustang out and has just tapped him a little bit wide, then obviously spun him round at the second part. But what a first opening race, and what a result for Stephen Devjak. He'll be absolutely thrilled with that one. Here is your final classification. Stephen Devjak is your race winner, commanding race win as well. Very dominant display from Devjak there. Ivan Vantigiato in second place, with Dante Oliva gaining on him towards the end, just not able to get close enough to make the move on the Mercedes-Benz. Rainman with a solid P4. Inoxi P5 ahead of Scott Borman. Nick Green with a wild attempt at P7 at the end there. Anthony Edwards P8. Luke Broadbent in 9th, with Michael Angeli rounding out the top 10. P11 for Ben Mitchell. Scott Evans in 12th, and sadly we didn't get to see Andrew Cash out there, P13.
Yeah, very unfortunate. We did see him sitting in the pit lane for practically the entire race. I don't even think he got off the starting line. I think he was pit lane bound from the start, but we do have a bit of a warm-up for the drivers just to get themselves ready for the feature. A good 4 minutes or so for themselves just to get a bit more aligned. Anthony Eduardes will be hoping for a little bit of a better race in the feature. He did sit prominently towards the backside of the grid, stuck behind prominently Nick Green and Luke Broadbent. So let's hope in the big Merc V8 he can do something different in the feature race. But it's going to be quite an interesting one. I wonder if Devjak can do the same, because if he can, that's going to be a lot of points on the board for him. I think we mentioned he was done in 12th on the championship standings. And so after today's racing, especially from being first in the sprint, if he can do the same in the feature, he's going to rack up a lot of points for that championship standing.
Well, he was only 4 behind Ben Mitchell and Michael Angeli, so he's jumped ahead of them two into the top 10. But it's how close he got to Borman and Nick Green and Andrew Cash as well. That's the biggest one. No Don Bray here either, so maybe a chance to gain on Don Bray as well. But I tell you what, Devjak, his pace didn't look like it, tried to slow down towards the end. He looked like he was still flat out, lapping in them low 1:14s. He looked as good as I've ever seen Devjak this season. He's looked on point. And Vantigiato and Oliva didn't really have an answer for him, did they, in that first race? They wasn't really battling hard with each other. Oliva was pretty content to follow Vantigiato home, and they just didn't have an answer for the Aston Martin driver.
No, definitely not. I mean, obviously, Oliva had a bit of an upset, a bit of an error towards the start of the race. We did see him drop off quite significantly. And then I think the first 4 or 5 laps was actually just a bit of a catch-up game with Vantigiato. And in those final couple of laps, we did see him in an attacking stance, about 6/10 of a distance to Vantigiato, but just not enough to get past the defensive driver of Vantigiato. But like you mentioned, Devjak, absolutely no contention whatsoever, and I believe it was also due to the fighting of the 2 drivers behind. But the Aston Martin driver, completely clean air around Canadian Motorsports Park here, but can he do it again? We've got about 30 seconds or so left of this warm-up session. Then we head to the starting procedure yet again for that 35-minute feature race. So if you were interested and you had a lot of fun watching that 10-minute race, well, be prepared. You've got a good 35 minutes or so coming up next to watch these drivers continuously pressure themselves. And like we mentioned, lots and lots of drivers have got the opportunity to climb up on that leaderboard, because we do have a couple of drivers missing in today's racing. We have mentioned a couple of names before, but for the drivers that are here, they've got quite a good opportunity to climb up the ranks. Nick Green definitely pushed himself up there in that previous race, finishing off in 8th. But can he do something similar in this race? Warm-up is officially over. We'll head to the starting procedure for our feature race shortly.
Yep, indeed. We're looking forward to this one. It's going to be an interesting race to see what's going to happen here. Obviously, the 35-minute race, so an extra 25 minutes for Devjak, who starts on pole position alongside Ivan Vantigiato. Dante Oliva is P3 alongside Rainman. Row 3 is Ian Noxie and Scott Borman. On row 4, 7th place, Nick Green ahead of Anthony Edwards. Rounding out the rear of the grid is Luke Broadbent alongside Michael Angeli. Ben Mitchell with Scott Evans, and hopefully we get to see Andrew Cash take to the grid this time around.
Yeah, let's hope so. Still starting off the backside of the grid, because there is no reverse grid, so at least that's been clarified for us. So Devjak, again, massive opportunity here. There is a mandatory pit stop that the drivers have to do in this race. And so the strategy element can come in for all the drivers. They need to keep their heads down, though. We do have a full formation lap waiting and ready for them as the clock has officially started for race number 2. Luke Broadbent a little bit further down, just behind Anthony Edwards in 8th position. And Angeli also will hope for a bit of a better race. He was 4 positions down in the sprint. So let's hope in the future he's got a bit more in him to climb up the ranks. So Rainman just behind the likes of Vantagiato in literal track position, but in terms of actual position, he'll be behind Dante Oliva in 3rd in that BMW. So let's hope Rainman can try and stick with that top 3, as they did run away quite prominently in the sprint.
Yeah, they did run away quite prominently in the sprint, and Devjak ran away from the top 2, didn't he, as well? So let's see what they can do. Rainman, he fell into the path of that Lamborghini of Noxie and the Ford Mustang as well. Sorry, Mitchell, yeah, and the Ford Mustang of Noxie. So it's going to be interesting to see what Rainman's pace is going to be, because he looked pretty comfortable over them, then fell sort of into their grasp and was involved in that incident with the Lamborghini where he got pushed to pass and was allowed back through. So keep your eyes on what he can do. Nick Green, he's going to be an interesting one to watch, because again, early on in that 10-minute sprint, looked like he had good pace, was attacking the back of the cars ahead of him, then just seemed to drop off a little bit. 35 minutes, 25 minutes extra to go, so you've got to now change your mindset, change your strategy almost. You're not having to go full out attack for 10 minutes. You've got to kind of play this one a little wisely, knowing that you've also got a pit stop to do it. Nick Green actually is in the pit lane, so he has not taken to the start of this race.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. I just saw him now in the pit lane. Not too sure what's going on there with Nick Green. And very unfortunate. I see Andrew Cash also unfortunately didn't take to the grid again. So will not be starting. We'll have an 11-car grid. Not too sure if Nick Green is starting from the pit lane. Maybe he felt a bit bad from what he did in the sprint and decided he's going to punish himself. I don't know if the stewards are going to see that. He might get double punished if he is punishing himself. Unfortunately, the racing still follows the standard procedure for the stewarding. But for the rest of the drivers, Devjak, Vantagiato, Oliva, Rainman, the top 4 will be fighting Noxie. Can he possibly stay with that stream of Rainman just behind and possibly keep in contact with that top 5? But the biggest thing is, will Devjak pull the same position we saw him do in that sprint, where he completely obliterated the field on pull-off? He watched as the corner started to extend, completely floored it, and Vantagiato just not able to react to the Vantage as he came around the corner. So going to be a very key insight to see, can Devjak pull away again in this race?
I'm going to say yes, I think he can. I think he's got the pace, he's got the confidence now after that first race to do just that. And we're about to find out, we're a couple of corners away from the starting this second race. Vantagiato and Oliva, they've got to get a good start in this one. They've got to hope that if Devjak's pace can hold for the 35 minutes, they've got to get ahead early.
Definitely so, but as we round off on the final corner, the starting procedure is officially complete and green light is away, and we go. Devjak again getting quite a nice pull compared to Vantagiato. You can see the gap difference from Vantagiato to Oliva compared to what Devjak has pulled on strong. Just a bit further behind though, Noxie already getting a bit pressured on the backside, and there you see Nick Green coming out of the pit box. Scott Evans now contesting Edwards on the outside line, and Angeli will try and keep her in tone, but a little bit off the track there for Ben Mitchell. We saw him taking a bit of grass, so taking the corner slightly incorrect. But for the drivers up in front, it is Broadbent on the outside now, who's managed to get 3 positions up. I mean, what an incredible jump up in this race for the likes of Broadbent, now fighting onto the backside of the top 5. And as soon as I mentioned, off into the gravel trap he goes. He'll lose 2 positions there to the likes of Berman and Mitchell. Berman also needs to fight, but Devjak, what has happened to Devjak? Down into 5th position, he's lost out completely here.
He has lost out completely. We'll find out hopefully what has happened to Devjak there, but now we get to see his true pace. How's he going to come back from this one? Because now it's Vantagiato leads from Oliva. Noxie's up into 3rd with Rainman chasing him down for that P3, but the 2 who finished 2nd and 3rd in race 1, they're as close as they was then, and they're going at it once again. But Devjak there, a rare mistake from him today, and he's now tumbled down all the way back to P5. He's got some overtaking to do. And this is Anthony Edwards at the back of the train at the moment. Nick Green already into the pits again. So is there a problem maybe with the steering wheel for Nick Green? Is his equipment just letting him down a little bit here? Something not feeling quite right potentially, as Devjack's already got past Rainman. And I think we're going to see a clinical and some overtaking here today, because the pace he had in race 1, if he can show that again, I think we're going to see some fantastic overtakes. So here he comes into the double right-hander now, through the first one, into the second one. A bit greedy. Whoa. Very strange one. That it happened quite late after the corner.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't too much of an incident, not at all. So no damage on that Aston Martin, which is great for the catch-up game. So he managed to catch it. Very, very good job there from Devjak. Unfortunately, we did see, I believe it was Scott Evans, similar corner in the previous race, who wasn't able to catch it, and he did end up in the wall. But thankfully for the likes of Devjak, it is now his time to try and chase back. And like Matthew says, this is going to be his true show of his pace. If he can climb back up towards that top 1 spot, he's got to get past Noxie, Aliva, and Vantagiato. He has now split in between of Rainman and Noxie, and that's going to be a little bit frustrating for Rainman, because he's got quite a fast driver up in front that he's going to have to try and contest with. Further back though, talking about him, Scott Evans will lead the mini train from 9th down to 11th, and Jelly and Edwards just a little bit further behind as they chase on towards Broadbent. Ben Mitchell, also a great start and a great recovery from the end of last race, 4 positions up now as he continues to pursue around the track. Nick Green is still in the pit lane. I'm not too sure if he's come out. No, he has come out, but he's 1 lap down over the rest of the field. So very unfortunate there for Nick Green, and not going to be ideal for what he wanted, especially for getting up into the top 7. This is how Noxie got ahead of Rainman though in lap number 1. Could potentially be to do with something of the incident that happened with Devjak. But into the next corner, you can see Rainman taking a little bit of a wider line and just actually open the door for Noxie up into 4th position. 3rd position he goes, and will continue pushing on strong, trying to stay just behind the likes of Aliva.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting race to keep our eyes on all the way to the end, isn't it now? Because that is Nick Green in the thick of this action, but he's a lap down to the other driver, so he'll be getting blue flags. He'll need to move out the way of Rainman, but doesn't appear to be at the moment. He's trying to make life a little bit more difficult for the Mercedes-Benz driver. Sadly for Nick Green, this isn't 4th position. He is that lap down, as we've said, so we'll see what happens here as Rainman now comes flying past the Ferrari once more. And Ian Noxie's Ford Mustang's going to be a difficult car to overtake for Devjak here. Just going to look at the timing tower on my other monitor a second. And yeah, fastest lap of the race is Advantagiato at 15.0. And Nick Green, huge hit into the wall for Nick Green there. And that is him return back to the pit lane. That could be his race done, to be fair. He's a lap down already. And that one is not going to be a quick fix, that is for sure. At the minute, Devjak just 3/10 slower than the leader and a 10th or 2 slower than the 2 cars in front. So just got to find his feet a little bit now.
Yeah, he's got a lot of time to work with. About 31 minutes that he's got to play with to try and get back up to where he was. We'll try and get a bit of a replay there of what happened to Nick Green, because that looked like quite an aggressive loss of car control there, and we saw it on the back wing with that camera angle. That looked quite hectic into that wall. The entire backside of the car ripped to shreds, and now we'll see what happens. So just tailing behind Rainman, obviously he is a lap down, holding on to the left hander. Was it possibly a bit of a grass touch or anything of that like? Coming into the next corner, loses the rear, and that's exactly where we see it getting planted into the tire barrier, unfortunately. Noxie comes into the pit. We have seen him constantly do this in the season. He does come in relatively early, gets that mandatory stop done for the day, and so that he's got a little bit more clean air to try and play with. Hopefully the undercut strategy works. He comes out, and that will be the mandatory pit stop done for Ian Noxie. So down from 4th position all the way down to 11th. Luke Broadbent dropping or down the orders. I'm not too sure if that's a possible pit stop or not, but Broadbent just lost 4 positions. That's definitely looking like he just recovered from a bit of a spin. We'll try and get a replay there of what happened to Broadbent. He's quite far off the rest of the pack now as he comes around in his Corvette. Was it a similar thing to what Nick Green did? It looks like it might be, except it's a little bit earlier. Bit of a grass touch on the right-hand side. He did try and catch it, but just not enough for the rear engine Corvette, and he'll try and recover it. Fortunately, not too much damage, but that rear downforce damage will cause a little bit of an interference in the next couple of laps.
He's done well there. That twitched several times. He's done well to keep hold of that and not let that just spear off into the wall. But yeah, Broadbent, bit of rear damage to his car. What can he do? Scott Bowman now coming under pressure a little bit from Ben Mitchell in the Lamborghini. This is for 5th and 6th place as Rainman's just a little further up the road. Oliva, fastest lap of the race, 14.5, matching Vantigiato and a tenth quicker than Devjak at the moment. So Devjak not just not showing us the pace he had, and Bowman's actually just got past Rainman. So what has happened to Rainman? Him and Mitchell have both passed the Mercedes-Benz, who was a couple of seconds up the road from these two just when we last saw them. And drivers now just started to make their own mistakes coming through the early part of this lap here at Mosport. Then so he comes through turn 1 nicely over the curb, going to use that curb on the outside line. And it always seems to be this left-handed coming down the hill that catches drivers out. Car just did not want to grip and turn in, and off he goes just a little wide. No damage, no harm hurt, no harm for the driver there, but yeah, he's just lost them 2 places. He's got to work hard now to get them back.
Yeah, fortunately a good recovery there from Rainman. That could have gone a lot worse if that car twitched to right. That could have been an entire front engine into the tire barrier, but managed to catch it, hold on to that outside line, and thankfully for him, it is only 2 positions lost. He can try and climb back, and that is exactly what he's going to do. You can see the pressure already being applied just behind the likes of Ben Mitchell from the big blue Merc GT. What can he do, though? He's still got lots of time left on the board. Lots of these drivers, even though they've made a couple of mistakes so early on in the race, they've got a lot of time to play with here. Vantigiato still tailing 1.5 seconds ahead of Oliva, and Devjak has moved up into 3rd position now, which is a good game for him. That was obviously after the pit stop of Ian Noxie. But what can he do to try and catch up? 2.8 seconds away, and somebody's off again. That's Michael Angeli, exact same as what Rainman just did. He did catch it as well in that rear engine Ferrari. Thankfully, not too much of a distraction to him, but that will be a slight drop of confidence as well as tire grip as he goes all over the grass. He has Angeli just with Scott Evans and Nick Green up ahead. And Eduardo's just, he actually gains 2 positions, but here goes, it's quite a long train actually, all 3 go, and Eduardo's, you can see, just gaining neatly up onto the inside line of Angeli, as well as Scott Evans, just loses out there from Scott Evans there, over there, but he did gain 2 when they went off the track. He is now going to be tailing behind the likes of Scott Evans. It's Merc versus Ferrari as they tail on for the next couple of laps. A bit further behind though, Michael Angeli with Luke Broadbent down in 10th position after that squabble that he had. He's still carrying that rear damage, and it looks like it is affecting him a little bit. You could see him in the background completely missing the apex of that next corner, and now quite a bit off from the likes of Angeli, a good 8 or so tenths from the 3 tenths he was slightly earlier. So chasing on still. We've still got about 25 minutes of racing. Keep your eye on that top 3 because things might start to change.
A bit of a downpour at that one section of the circuit, isn't it? It's bone dry, there's no rain around, and yeah, everybody's slipping and sliding all through that left-hander coming down the hill as here comes Rainman on Ben Mitchell, side by side, a little bit too close for comfort there, coming in towards the double right-hander. They are still absolutely together. Cannot be separated. A little bit loud on the accelerator there from Rainman. That's just going to allow Mitchell to just get the run out the corner and in the traction zone. And he manages to hold on to that position, now trying to break the slipstream. Not a big lover of the weaving down the straight. Raymond just dipping a wheel onto the grass there to try and see if there's a gap up the inside. But Mitchell only made the 2 moves and then stuck to his line. So nothing too bad with that one. But good little fight here indeed for this P5 and 6 position. Rainman just making his own little mistakes at the moment that just seem to be costing him in this race. And that is Mitchell well off the road there. That'll be an off track for him. And Vantigiato at the moment just starting to just slowly creep away from Oliva so far. Gap open up over 1.5 seconds as Devjak now with the fastest lap and with some 2 tenths quicker than Vantigiato and 4 tenths quicker than Oliva that you can see on your screen there. That is the best laps from all the drivers at the moment as Mitchell a little bit wide. Rainman just cannot get that car to grip in under acceleration, tight to the inside line there, and Mitchell's going to hold that place. Angeli has just got past Evans then, so he's moved his way back ahead of the red Ferrari.
Yeah, great stuff from all the drivers. A little bit further on behind the pack, but still fighting for position. Remember, we did say that the top 15 do get awarded points, and fortunately for these drivers, there is only currently 11 drivers out on track. Oh, Nick Green is actually out again. I see that his clock is moving onwards, which is great to see. You can see him just a bit further behind there. Looks like he's managed to get the car nicely repaired. I do see a huge back wing back on that Ferrari, which is a good sign. But another important note is that Deviak is now just about a second behind Oliva. And this could potentially be the fight to get into that second position again after dropping off a couple of laps earlier. Scott Evans, he will have pressure from behind of Broadbent. There we can see Dante Oliva, and just behind him is Deviak. He's about 1.5 seconds away from Vantagiato, but he does have to worry behind because the faster driver in terms of average lap time. And take note, Deviak's fastest lap time did get updated the last lap. 1:14.155, a good 3/10 faster than Dante Oliva in his previous lap time, which is absolutely phenomenal. And now 6/10 behind. You can see just from when we started looking at him to now, look how much closer he's gotten to the likes of Oliva. And this could potentially be an overtake for the Vantage driver in the next coming corners. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Borman a little bit further behind in fourth. He is quite a good margin away, about 7 seconds away from Steven Deviak, unfortunately. So you can see quite a good amount of clean air behind Deviak. So the top three completely isolated yet again, but it's all going to come down to the strategy being played. Remember, the top three have not taken any pit stops yet. The only person to have pitted so far, I think, is Ian Noxie. I think a couple of other drivers might have possibly came in while we were watching around the track, but not 100% sure. Scott Evans a bit further behind, still fighting Broadbent, and Broadbent is getting ever so closer in his Corvette to making a dive in the next couple of corners. So keep an eye out on these two, because this position could also switch around for that 9th position here.
Yeah, and Deviak, just going back to what you said a moment ago, just seems like he's now getting into that rhythm, doesn't he, of just settling into a nice momentum and getting them low 1:14 lap times on the board. Again, last lap he took another 4/10 off of Oliva and half a second off of Vantagiato. And Waters happened to rain, man. Tumbled now behind Eduardes. And yeah, another mistake for the blue Mercedes. Was there a bit of an incident? Car looks pretty okay, to be fair. So let's see what's happened on the replay. He's actually going to have done this on his own, because the Lamborghini of Mitchell is nowhere near him. And again, is it going to be left-handed downhill? Yeah, bit of a snap on corner entry. It's like there's oil or water or something on that part of the circuit. There's absolutely not, we can tell you that one. But they are just, everybody's struggling through that section.
Yeah, it's almost like a bit of a puon from Spa-Francorchamps, the down left-hander. If you don't take that entry correct, or if you take your braking slightly incorrect, that rear end does tend to light up a bit, and it doesn't like to cooperate with the front end side of the car. So very unfortunate there. We've seen a couple of drivers just not getting in tone with that first corner. Thankfully for the top three, they all seem to be pretty comfortable. Rainman taking a little bit too much track there. That's going to definitely be an X onto his incident point, unfortunately for him. And remember, a couple too many incident points and you will get yourself a drive-through penalty, so you have to watch out for that as well. But back onto that top fight, Oliva, you can see how close Deviak is getting now. 3/10 behind, and he takes that corner a lot faster than Oliva does. But they're all starting to catch equally, because now Oliva is 1 second down on Vantagiato. So the top three overall getting very, very in between each other. And Jelly has gotten past Broadbent now for that fight a little bit further down. We'll see a replay of it. Here you can see Broadbent, there's Angeli and Scott Evans. Was this Scott Evans possibly getting passed up on the inside line? And a little bit of tapping on the outside. That could have been very dangerous for Angeli if he went off right. And as you can see, Broadbent trying to capitalize as well, just not enough. And Scott Evans does take that position back from Angeli. Luke Broadbent will be trying to fight onto the backside of them. Ian Noxie down in 11th, the underdog. We need to watch out for Ian Noxie. You remember that he pitted very early on in this race, and he could possibly reap the benefits of getting that undercut. But it's going to take a couple of minutes for the other drivers around track to get themselves into the pit box. There comes the driver, actually. Broadbent comes in to serve his pit, and we'll have to see how this is going to play against the rest of the grid.
I was just about to say that I think for Noxie, if he gains onto the back of that train, it's going to possibly ruin the strategy he's done. Broadbent there was so early on the limiter, by the way, that he's cost himself a couple of seconds coming into the pit lane now. And you were saying about Oliva's got the gap back down under a second advantage. Vantagiato, he's had to get the hurry on, hasn't he? Because the way that Devjak's been catching him, he's had to really start to put the throttle down and get on with this as Oliva out front. So he's now up into, he's still second place, up to 0.6 of a second gap between them. Noxie to Angeli then. Over the last couple of laps, you can see how the gap has come down to 6.9 seconds. if Angeli and Evans, and then maybe that of Rayman, don't pit anytime soon, that's going to have a massive knock-on effect to Noxie's strategy here. He could have pulled a blinder, especially if the top 3 start to fight and Noxie gets that clear air and everybody pits around Noxie before he gains onto the back of them. If the top 3 start scrapping hard, then that could have really played into Noxie's hand. This is Scott Evans, though, with Angeli just behind him, who's having a great little fight. That is Nick Green as well, who in the first race would have been in this fight, but sadly in this one he's 2 laps down on everybody, so sadly he is not in this fight. And Devjack has passed Oliva. He's moved up into second place. Looked like Oliva was on the grass for a moment. You see the dirt being kicked up as he rejoined the circuit. Let's take a look at what has happened here. So coming into the right-hander, Devjack, did he just clip the curb, bounce off it? No, he's just going to understeer wide, and the grass has just pulled him in. A little bit of understeer, and Devjack's not going to have as easy. He's not going to have as easy an overtake to make all day than that.
Yeah, we're talking as well about the undercut from Ian Noxie. I was just looking at the best lap times. Unfortunately for him, it's not looking too good in terms of the undercut here. We're looking at the top 3, the average lap times in terms of their best, about 1:14.1 to 1:14.4s, and Ian Noxie's best, a 1:15.2. So about a second down on the top 3 runners. And remember, when he did pit, he was in 4th position. Obviously, Scott Boerman's hitting 1:14.8, so still setting faster lap times compared to Noxie. And so he's really got to get a move on if he does want to get the undercut strategy working correctly. Vantagiato got in a little bit of a fright, though, to see the Aston Martin back behind him. He's started gapping a bit. 1.2 seconds away now from Devjack. After the little bit of an incident from Oliva, Devjack moves up. But now it's going to be quite a close battle. What can Devjack do to try and gain back? Rainman into the pits now to get his mandatory pit stop done. Down to 9th he will go. When does Ian Noxie lap him? There he comes. Not lap, but overtake. So Ian Noxie now moves up into 9th position. He is chasing down on that battle for 9th. The battle for 6th between Edwards, Evans, and Angeli. But for Rainman, into the pit stop he goes. Is it a slow pit stop? Is it a fast pit stop? On the jacks for quite a while. It looks like he's actually replacing the tires. Most drivers won't be doing this, as 35 minutes, like we spoke about in the beginning, the GT3s are used to doing about an hour to an hour and 20-minute stints. And with this only being a 35-minute race, that's only half of a stint. So they can definitely run for quite a bit longer. Rainman, new tires though, possibly because of all the spins he's had on first turn. Those tires could have been quite worn and covered in debris. So maybe just trying to take some new tires, hoping that turn number 1 will feel a little bit more comfortable in the laps to come. But for Vantagiato, lots and lots of pressure behind. 2 top runners just a bit further behind will be chasing down on that pole.
Yeah, and I think for Vantagiato here, he's just got to start to get his head down and get some good lap times on the board as in comes Ben Mitchell to the pits. Well, he's not going to worry about Rainman anymore because he's taking tyres. So that'll be that fight put to bed, and Mitchell should be able to come out on top in that one there then. This will be interesting to see where Mitchell comes out over Noxie. He's away from his pit box now, and let's see where Noxie is. He's already gone past, so he'll be nowhere in regards to Ian Noxie. Noxie is through. The problem for Noxie now is he's only 5 seconds off the back of Angeli, so where will he come out over the likes of Scott Boerman, who he's been lapping similar pace to, is Scott Boerman. And Anthony Edwards actually is last lap dipping into the 1:14s for Anthony Edwards.
I'm not too sure if we've lost Matthew possibly, but let's hope he comes back shortly. But like we were talking about, Ben Mitchell and Ian Noxie. So Ian Noxie trying to catch up onto the backside of Angeli. Let's hope that in the next couple of laps, that whole pack, Eduardes, Evans, and Angeli, hopefully those 3 can come in for their stop, because it is going to be within that pit window. It has been about 20 minutes of racing. So if those 3 do come in before Noxie catches up, that's going to be great for his undercut strategy. It means he doesn't get stuck in any form of traffic. But back up to the top, Vantagiato 1.2 seconds off still from Devjack, so he's really able to keep the pace quite consistent here. He has improved his best lap time. Unfortunately, it's not as fast as Devjack, so let's hope that something can happen there. But as we speak about it, Angeli comes in to the pit box, and Noxie moves up into 7th position. What happens with Evans and Eduardes though? When will they come into pit? Angeli, is it going to be a fast pit stop? Ben Mitchell overtakes him. Very, very quick stop for Angeli and comes out. Unfortunately, Rainman has kind of sold his race after getting tires, because he's down to 11th position and already completed his mandatory pit stop.
Question for you, Tristan. Does Devjak think about maybe undercutting, or does Oliva think about undercutting the two in front of him in this race? I'm surprised we've not seen one of the three leaders at least maybe try and undercut in this race. Pretty much nothing to lose. As I say that, Oliva's in. So that's question answered. Oliva's obviously thinking now off the undercut.
Definitely so. You might have heard you in the commentary box. Yeah, he's decided to pull the strategy, and in comes the BMW driver. How is this going to affect the fighting between himself, Devjak, and Vantagiato? Obviously, all three of them were quite close in terms of actual track position, so lots and lots of dirty air between them. Oliva hopefully will come out in a bit of a clean window. We'll get your track map up in the top right to see where he sits currently, but a bit further behind, we can see Eduardes now moves up into fourth after not completing that stop. Oh, what has happened to Rainman's front bumper? That I don't know if that's design or not, but that does not look like the normal front bumper of his car, and he definitely looks like he's struggling, unfortunately. So possibly another incident after his pit for the likes of Rainman, and just not looking too good. Oliva now fighting in between the likes of Eduardes, trying to get past. Remember, Eduardes has not pitted, and now getting a little bit frustrated is Oliva. We saw him flashing his lights at the backside of Eduardes, trying to get past as fast as possible and chase back onto the top leaders. But it is going to be a bit of a contention. Eduardes is fighting for position here, so we'll have to see how this goes for these drivers.
Well, I just said about the undercut for Oliva, and that's kind of put that one to bed, because now he's stuck behind the Mercedes-Benz of Eduardes. So Eduardes at the moment is the cork in the bottle for Oliva here. Oliva would really and ideally love Eduardes to come into the pits this time around, as well as maybe Bowman, and Eduardes does come into the pit lane. So Oliva has been released. He's got a couple of seconds now to Bowman. But has he lost just a little bit of time, a little bit too much time maybe, behind the Mercedes-Benz here of Eduardes to be on the bike, or to maybe have jumped to Devjak or Vantagiato on that one? The outlap there of 15.4, so not too bad on his outlap. We'll see what his first lap, flying lap is now in clear air. Noxie is also past Eduardes, so he's moving up the leaderboard nicely there. And where will Eduardes re-emerge from the pit lane? He's going to be pretty comfortably, I'd say, ahead of Ben Mitchell. Maybe not comfortable, but a decent margin. He can sit pretty happy with that one. When will Vantagiato, Devjak and Bowman pit? They're the only three left to pit in this race. And the gap under a second between Vantagiato and Devjak, and Vantagiato into the pit. So Devjak going long in this race. Now we'll see what Dante Oliva has done with his pace since trying the undercut. Will Bowman come into the pits as well? Vantagiato in. It needs to be a good stop for the Mercedes-Benz here.
Yeah, definitely needs to be a quick stop. I hope he doesn't take tires like Rainman did. I don't think the Merc driver will. We can see he's already aligning that steering wheel, and there off he goes. Very quick pit stop. Actually average pit stop compared to the other standards. But this is time for Devjak. Now all the way out in the front, he's back into that clean air train. If he can set a couple of fast laps on that car, he could possibly pull that gap away from Vantagiato, who might have come out in a bit of traffic. We'll have a look at the track map if it can pop up on the right-hand side, just to see where everybody currently sits out on track. You can see highlighted in third is Vantagiato. He does have Berman just up in front and Oliva just ever so behind. But looking on that track map, look at the number one all the way on that back straight. Completely clean air for Devjak to set a couple of fast laps. So let's hope he can do it in the next coming laps. But for Vantagiato, he's got the pressure behind of Oliva yet again. But the question is, will Devjak pit and come out ahead? Will he pit and come out in between? Or will he pit and come out in between them? He's come into the pits quite early compared to what we would have thought, and on the limiter again early, like Nick Green did a couple of laps earlier. What can he do though? We might have to pull up that track map again. I apologize to the producer who keeps on putting it away, just to see where he comes out. You can see there he's in the pit lane. There comes second of Scott Berman, who also comes in. And unfortunately, here comes the likes of Devjak. This is going to be ultimately close as he comes down the right-hand side. There goes Vantagiato. And here comes Oliva. He is just ahead of Oliva. My goodness, slotting just in between the top two. And we'll continue on that fight on a slightly fresher car, new fuel. Obviously, none of them on fresh tires, as they'll continue to pursue around the track for the next 10 minutes.
Inoxi's moved up to P4, so his strategy has pulled him back out into 4th place. I think if Deviak wasn't early on the limiter there, I think he may have been side by side with Vantigiato coming out of the pit lane, and he's already bringing that gap down. It got down to just half a second coming in towards the braking zone of Moss, and now it's all about this exit. He stays within around half a second to Vantigiato, so he's a little bit closer. He gained a couple of tenths in the pit stop. He was stationary longer as well, so maybe a better in-lap for Deviak over Vantigiato, because it was 9/10 of a second the gap before Vantigiato pitted 2 laps ago. So Deviak, who's had a longer pit stop, has definitely gained a little bit. So maybe the better in-lap for Deviak, having that clean air, has helped him out just a little bit. But now he's got to get them tyres fired back up. They'd have just cooled a little bit being sat in the pit lane for a couple of seconds, as well as trundling down on the pit limiter as a lever thinks of having a look in towards turn 1. And is this race going to go the way of the Mercedes-Benz of Vantigiato, or can Deviak do the double and take 2 race wins? He's had the pace today. I've been very impressed with Deviak's pace. He's been really good at it.
Yeah, I mean, even if he does take 3rd, yeah, if he theoretically does get overtaken by a lever, it's still a lot of points on the board for him, considering he's sitting down in 12th in the championship standings. And so a 1st in the sprint and a 3rd in the feature, or even a 2nd where he currently sits, would be absolutely phenomenal points. But obviously, the deepest desire here for him is to get into 1st, and it's getting very close between Vantigiato and Deviak, taking very different approaches to the corner exit. And as you can see, Vantigiato getting a bit more of a pull away from Deviak, but my goodness, Deviak meeting the backside bumper of Vantigiato in the middle of that corner. So slightly faster in, slightly slower out for Deviak. A little bit further back though with the likes of Broadbent on the backside of Angeli now, and this is where it's going to get tight. The final lap has been called. We've had to cut it short to match the end of the race. This has happened before, and there we can see the finish, and unfortunately not enough for Deviak. It's something that we've seen before in the race, and just a little bit more time for Deviak and he would have had it under the belt. But Vantigiato takes the win of the race. Deviak will take 2nd and Oliva will take 3rd. So great points still for the top 3. Unfortunately, we got cut short there. I think Deviak could have done it with a bit more time.
Yeah, it looked like he had the momentum, didn't he, going into the back part of this race after the pit stop. But yeah, sadly the race got cut short. So your podium: Vantigiato, Deviak, Oliva, Noxie P4, Borman in 5th, Edwards P6. Good result for Edwards in this one as opposed to race number 1. Rainman down in 11th, Nick Greeno finished 2 laps down. That's going to be Mitchell and Evans finishing 7th and 8th, with then Angelli finishing in P9. Broadbent 10th, and like we said, Green down in 11th place in this race. Yeah, shame to see that one cut short, because I think we've been robbed of a race-winning triple sort of fight there.
Definitely so. It was looking very interesting, but unfortunately, we do have to match the time quota here for this event. So that is it for this round, and officially finished and done for the sprint and the feature race for the penultimate round here at Canadian Motorsports Park. I believe we do have time for one interview. Unfortunately, we can't do any more. Let's have a look to see if anybody does pop in. I think a couple of them will also be a bit confused with the cut short. That has happened before though, but we'll have to see if somebody does pop in. But we'll have your standings on screen now for that finishing round of the feature race, but it is going to be Vantigiato who takes the win here, followed by Steven Deviak in 2nd, just 0.3 of a difference. Oliva will take 3rd, with the Inoxi taking 4th after that massive undercut strategy. 5th is Scott Berman, with Anthony Eduardes in 6th. Ben Mitchell will take 7th, with Scott Evans down in 8th. Michael Angeli in 9th position, with Luke Broadbent rocking around the top 10 position. Just a bit further down is Rainman. Nick Green, unfortunately 2 laps down, and then Andrew Cash not able to start this race yet again for the 38 Motorsport team. And 13th position for him. There'll still be points on the board though, but we do have time for one interview. Matt, I'm gonna let you take this interview as we have Ivan Vantigiato joining us in the commentary box.
Ivan, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the commentary box. You're live on Apex Racing TV. Great race win for you out there, but you was under pressure at the very end.
Oh, absolutely. A huge congratulations to Steven. I mean, he drove phenomenal if it wasn't for that mistake at lap 1. But I fixed a couple of things in between races, and I'm super stoked to be here with you guys.
Yeah, it was an interesting race 1, wasn't it? You just didn't seem to have the pace of the Aston Martin in the first race. But race 2, like you said, fixed a couple of things, and the pace was matching. The pace was there to keep him behind you.
Oh, I mean, all three, you know, like the top three was separated by nothing every single lap, but I kept on losing 2/10 coming out of the double rights. And that caused me a lot of problems because the boys were mega tonight. And I'm in a pool of sweat right now. It's pretty awesome.
We head to Phillip Island next week for the season finale. Looking forward to that one?
Absolutely, it's one of my favorites. I go every year for the MotoGP, and hopefully, you know, the champion is back. He's been phenomenal all season, and you know, you always want to be competing against the very best people. I think tonight my teammate was just on another level. Like I said, if it wasn't for that mistake, I think he would have got me really good. But no, huge thank you to the team. You know, we're all working very hard. We're pushing very hard. My fiance, who puts up with this crazy world of sim racing, and yeah, stoked to be here.
Brilliant. Well, we'll let you go and enjoy that one. Thank you for joining us in the commentary box.
I definitely will. Thank you very much.
Enjoy. Tristan, what a race it has been here at Mosport this afternoon. It's been a fantastic day, sorry. I think I dragged the wrong person out there. It's been a fantastic day of racing here at Mosport. Tristan, thank you once again for joining us in the commentary box. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a phenomenal race here. And like we mentioned, this was the penultimate round of the BISC GT3 Championship. Again, a massive thank you to all the sponsors for this event. Bowden's Own and Benji's YouTube channel being the two major sponsors for this event. But that is officially it for Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. We head to Phillip Island for the final race of the BISC GT3 Championship. The same config, a 10-minute sprint. And hopefully we'll see the 35-minute full-length race for the feature, but only time will tell. Thank you so much for joining us though today. Wherever you are in the world, have a fantastic day, afternoon, or evening, and we'll see you next week for the final round. Have a good one.
Goodbye.